What's up, guys? Welcome back. Perfect. So I missed yesterday. So that's on me. I apologize. I know we're getting there. I lost power as I did not keep my commitment of doing this once a day. So that's on me. So today we are combining these last two sections of this chapter. How to use this book and what you can expect. So this is the end of the preface, and then right after this, on next episode, we're going to be hopping into Habit 1, Be Proactive, which is amazing, and I'm super excited for it. Habit 1 is literally, it's the foundation that sets all these other, well, this is the foundation, the preface. But Habit 1 is, it's just, I don't know, it's amazing. I'm really excited for it. Moral of that story. So this actually is really cool because this is what I'm applying right now. Stephen Covey is going to offer us 2 paradigm shifts as we continue to study this book, the principles and the concepts that are taught in it. And if we integrate these 2 paradigm shifts into our lives as we are studying this, then tremendous positive differences will happen in your life. And I'm going to try and explain that from my perspective and how that's influenced me in the ways, like how this book has helped me develop those tremendous positive differences. And I'm going to try and get really specific. This has been something that I've been wanting to nail down, is being able to express like the why does it matter, why is this important to people in this context of the 7 habits. And so this is going to give me a great opportunity to do that. So we're going to do that. And then also, so that's the paradigm shifts and then what you can expect when you adopt these paradigm shifts. So those 2 things right there. So going right into it, he says that there are 2 the paradigm shifts. The first one is that we shouldn't see this book as a book to be like read and then put back on the shelf. But he says that it's more of like a companion study as you go about your daily life. So it's not just a book you read and then put away. It's more of a book that you're constantly referring to. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in order, but let's say like whatever habit you're working on, you can go and read that habit, which is actually very, very true. Today is Sunday, and so I was doing my weekly planning. And I thought, well, I want to get a better idea of how to weekly plan. And so I went back to Habit 3, where it talks about that, and was reading in Habit 3 today. And it gave me a lot of good insights and things I had kind of forgotten or had left out. And it was really cool to like revisit those principles and to revisit the foundation I had already built about Habit 3 and be able to build upon that and like learn more true principles. And so, amazing there. So that's the first one, is to look at it as not a book, but as more of like a companion study to go throughout your life. That's why I have this rule where, this is kind of weird, but I always bring my 7 Habits book with me. Like wherever I go. I like this guy right here. I always have it with me. The book. I always throw it in my backpack, bring it to school, to home, because it's just amazing. And if I ever need to like go back and look at it, which I do quite often actually, in trainings, in interviews, in like homework, in weekly planning, and in my individual life, and just talking with friends, I'm always like opening this book up and constantly referring to it. So it's like really cool to just have it with me. So there's that. And then so it just like allows you to understand the principles a little bit better and to increase your knowledge, your skill, and your desire in those habits. The second paradigm is what I'm doing with this podcast. It is shifting your role from a learner to that of a teacher. And if you do that and you read with like the purpose in mind that you're going to teach this material to somebody, then your understanding of this material will increase drastically. And you'll start to notice a different mental process and different like emotional process, but you'll like truly understand this at a deeper level. And that's like so true for me. As I'm rereading the 7 Habits book, doing it again, like I said, especially this whole idea of like paradigms and principles and the PPC balance and all these P's, right? But it's given me a broader perspective. Like my perspective has expanded in how much this book encompasses my life and how it applies to literally every single thing that I do. It's so foundational and deep. And it's funny, actually, I was talking with my mom this week, and she was listening to this podcast, and she was reading the book as she was listening to it. And she says, Josh, this book is not a book that I can just read through. Like I have to read a section, ponder on it, read a section, ponder on it, read a section, ponder on it. It's a very deep read, and it's so facts, which is why on my 5th time reading it, I'm doing this podcast, because I'm really trying to integrate this paradigm shift into my life, where I'm teaching this material to other people so I can deeply not only integrate it into my life, but also understand it way better and build upon that foundation that I've set, which is totally happening. I've learned so much going through this already that's really like made it more clear, more simple, to where I can teach it more effectively and communicate the correct message more effectively. So I would strongly encourage anybody who is listening to this to go teach the material that we talk about after each episode, because that will drastically increase your ability to understand it, to apply it, and to reap the benefits that you've sown by reading it and teaching it. I promise that'll work. So there's that. One other cool promise that he says here that actually is really intriguing is he says, in addition, as you openly, honestly share what you're learning with others, you may be surprised to find that negative labels or perceptions that others may have of you tend to disappear. Those you teach will see you as a changing, growing person and will be more inclined to be helpful and supportive as you work, perhaps together, to integrate the 7 habits into your lives. So as you teach these principles to other people, they're going to stop viewing you in negative lights or as like a label, and start viewing you as a person who's really striving to become better and really striving to be open and honest and motivated to make a difference in the world. And that's very, very true. I've seen that with a lot of people that I've shared 7 Habits stuff with. And it's really cool to reap that trust-based relationship that comes from that. Really, really cool, guys. This next quote he talks about so moving on to the section where it's what you can expect, is this quote that he says from Marilyn Ferguson. No one can persuade another to change. Each of us guards a gate of change that can only be opened from the inside. We cannot open the gate of another either by argument or by emotional appeal. I really like that quote. I think it is possible to influence that decision, but I do not think that we can make that decision or determine that decision for another person, but we can for ourselves. And so if we decide to open this gate of change, to truly be humble and open to these ideas and these principles, to really understand and to live the principles embodied in the 7 Habits, what's going to happen is something truly, truly amazing. So he lists a bunch of things here, and I kind of want to go over how each of these have applied into my life. And so I'm going to try to get a kind of vulnerable here and see. No, I hope this helps anybody who's listening to it. But again, it's mainly for me to get my thoughts out and my ideas and to express them, to put these into words. So he splits these up into sections where you have the private victory, which is habits 1 through 3. That's where you go from dependence to independence. And so the first thing he says is that you will significantly increase your self-confidence, which I have found for me to be definitely the case. I do things now that I would never do before. Like, I ask for discounts wherever I go now. Kind of weird, but like, heck, I went and got my oil changed the other week, and I asked the guy if he did discounts for students, and he said, no, we don't. And I asked him, well, what discounts do you have? And he said, well, we have a discount on our website for $7 off. And I was like, I'll take it. Right? So it wasn't much, but like, I mean, $7 is $7, right? And so I got that discount just because I had an increase in self-confidence to just ask him what discounts he had. And so like, and just like other things that I do, talking to people, my interactions, how I interact with like classes and sharing comments and stuff, how open and vulnerable I am. It's been really cool to have that increase in self-confidence. And then the meaningful relationships that can stem because of that, which we'll go into later. But he says here, in addition to self-confidence, you will know yourself in a deeper, more meaningful way. So true. As I have implemented these 7 habits into my life, I've gained a deeper understanding of who I am, of like my innermost values. Like before I kind of got into this stuff, and just like with the company I work for, because this is kind of like the basis for our program, is I didn't really understand what I valued. It was innate within me, like I wasn't killing people, obviously, or like doing drugs or robbing banks or anything. Like I was a good person, but I just wasn't aware of the things that I valued. It wasn't like a specific priority. It hadn't come to my conscious mind yet. But by bringing it to my conscious mind in these ways, I've been able to develop that inner security, that inner guidance, this inner wisdom, inner power. And we'll go into those later, but those things are very, very essential in leading an effective life, to where you climb the ladder and make sure it's against the right wall and able to climb that ladder very, very fast. Looking at Stephen Covey's life, for example, the man did amazing things, helped millions of people's lives, including my own. And his work will still influence others drastically for generations to come. So like, even though he's passed on, his work isn't dead yet. And some of the stories I hear from him has just really shown that he's been able to live that like good of a life, and that like I guess you could say that prosperous of a life, but just a very effective life. And like that's like what I want, which is why I'm trying to embody these so much, because I truly believe that these principles combined with the gospel of Jesus Christ is like the direction and the effectiveness of a happy, meaningful, and joyful life that not only is for my time frame, but also for generations to come. Well, and so he says that you'll be able to know, like, understand your nature, your strengths, your talents, your deepest values, your unique contribution capacity. What is your unique contribution? What is the one thing that if you don't do, nobody will? Let me repeat that. What is the one thing that if you don't do, nobody will? If Bill Gates had not invented Microsoft, would that company be around? Would somebody else have come by and taken it and built it up and invented it? If Steve Jobs had not done Apple, would we have iPhones and MacBooks? Would somebody else have come along and invented that? I don't know. Listening to Steve Jobs' backstory, a lot of his childhood events and high school classes he took set him up and guided Apple to where it is today. So would it have happened? I kind of doubt it. I don't think we'd have Apple if Steve Jobs hadn't done that. So what's your unique contribution? As you apply these 7 habits, you'll come to find that out, as I have for myself. I'm not going to go super deep into it because it's like actually pretty sacred to me in that way. And I might share some more stuff as we talk about that in habit 2. But those are things that you'll find in here. And it says, as you live your values, your sense of identity, integrity, control, and inner directedness will infuse you with both exhilaration and peace. That is so facts. I have found just peace of mind as I have centered myself on principles instead of on sandy foundations. I truly have been able to find both like motivation and desire to do good, so that exhilaration, but also peace in what I have done and in who I am. That it's just like combination, like I'm grateful of where I am and content with what I have, but also very exhilarated and excited to push further and to build a life that like I truly want. Build a life by design, not by default. Says here, you will define yourself. This is so good. He talks about defining yourself by a power within rather than by like other people's opinions or comparisons. So this is actually hits home to me. Sorry, I might get a little bit vulnerable, but I used to care a lot about what people think of me. And I think I do still to an extent. It's a lot less though. But so we'll go into this later, but there's this thing called possession centered, where it talks about how being centered on your possessions, that you derive your self-worth from their possessions. And that doesn't necessarily mean tangible things, although it usually does, but it can also mean like status or reputation or like a title that you've earned. And so I very much, this was me, and still kind of is, and I'm working in overcoming it, hence why I'm going back over this book. But this whole idea of possession-centered and how I cared a lot about what other people thought of me. I cared a lot about my reputation. I was trying to please everybody, make everyone happy, make everyone like me. And it was so exhausting, so tiring, and so hard. I remember one time this thought came to me as I was reading 7 Habits was, I choose to not please everybody. And as I repeated that back to myself, I just felt so free. Like a huge burden had been lifted off of me, like emotionally and frankly spiritually. And I just felt like this huge like relaxation and just like relief that I like, like I don't have to keep putting on a show or like working. I can just be myself because now I choose to define myself from within and not by other people's opinions or how much they like me. And so now it's not my inner self-worth and happiness and peace and exhilaration isn't based on what other people think of me or how much they like me, but it's more based on who I believe I am and who I think I can become and like my inner character, which is really, really cool. He also says that the difference between wrong and right will have little to do with being found out, which also is so facts. Like, I very much, it still happens to me. I'm not perfect, but I don't care if I'm wrong. And I'm very open in like admitting that to people, where if people know that I'm wrong, that doesn't actually affect me a whole lot anymore. Like, I'm very, very cool with being wrong. Like, yeah, of course I am. Like, I'm trying to harmonize my life with principles. I've adopted this paradigm that like all of the processes and systems in my life, I just know that they're wrong. And over time, I'm trying to make them less wrong. And so, like, yeah, I'm open about that, and or at least trying to be. And I am a lot better, but it has little to do with being found out and has everything to do with just being effective and harmonizing yourself with true and correct principles, which another name for that would be repentance, which is really cool actually. But anyways, there's that. And so as you care less and less what people think of you, and it's interesting because you actually care more about what others think of themselves and their world. As you adopt these new paradigms, you become aware of other people's paradigms and how they should stop caring what other people think of them and start caring about how they view their own world and themselves. And the relationship between you two. That becomes more of a priority. Really, really cool stuff. He also says that you'll no longer build your emotional life on other people's weaknesses. This is really, really noticeable in sports, especially like one-on-one sports. So like ping pong, right? Essentially, like if the other person messes up or like doesn't do it, like serves a bad serve or whatever, and like you get these feelings of like happiness. So you're happy because someone else messed up because you're trying to like beat them and to win, right? What does it say here? You'll no longer build your emotional life on other people's weaknesses. It's kind of weird to think that, like, why should you be happy if somebody else failed or didn't do so good? Kind of a weird concept, right? But there's that. So yeah, and then we'll find it easier and more desirable to change, to where you'll become more aware and open to new ideas and to new things, and like you won't care that you have the right way. But as you become more open and adopt these new beliefs and paradigms and processes and systems, ideas, like you very much will increase your effectiveness and get a more accurate map of the territory. Definitely seen that in my life. And so is that. And guys, I hope this is hitting hard. It's hard for me to describe this to you guys, but like I'm trying to the best that I can. All these things are just so true all these things are just like so true in my life. So there's that. And then it says as you move to public victory, you'll discover and unleash the desire and the resources to heal and rebuild important relationships. That's so true. I have felt, especially with like my family, I felt a huge increase in the quality of the relationships as I have learned to value those relationships and put those as a priority. And also with like my really good friends that I have, it's just been really, really cool to put more of a priority on those and to work on the PC of the relationship to earn the P of the joy and the happiness that comes from those relationships. And then the good relationships have improved and become more solid, more creative, and more adventuresome, which is so facts. I feel like relationships, especially with like my brothers, has increased a lot since I've been applying these principles into my life. And it's like not just me, it's also them. I feel like they also are putting in the work, which is awesome, and I love that. The seventh habit is really, really cool because it allows you to recharge your own batteries. So like imagine batteries being able to recharge themselves. Like a phone being able to recharge itself. Like that's what Habit 7 does for us. Things like infinite power type loop thing. And that's literally Habit 7. It allows us to charge our own batteries to where we expend energy, but we get more energy back. Like you on a run, right? And you're actually increasing your ability to have more energy by expending energy, which I think is super cool and kind of like unique to us as humans and animals. But there's that. And so like what's really cool about these habits though is they're like very applicable and very changeable, like, or very adaptable or integratable. Like you can replace your old ineffective habits with these effective habits. I promise it can be done because you are a human, because you have unique endowments that are only human, self-awareness, imagination, conscious, and independent will. You can very much integrate these habits. There's like no greater investment than that. So it's not going to be some quick fix or shortcut. It's going to take time, but the benefits and the payoffs down the road are exponentially greater. Essentially, it's setting that foundation for your life before building the skyscraper. And that's super important, because if you don't build that foundation first, which like no one sees it and no one compliments on it, and so it's very hard as us to build it because there's no like real immediate payoff for it. But long term, it's going to sustain that skyscraper that everyone is going to compliment on, everyone is going to see, and that's the work that you have to show for all this work that you've done. So there's that. Ending off this with a quote from Thomas Paine saying, "That which we obtain too easily, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only which gives everything its value. Heaven knows how to put a proper price on its goods." And that's so true. That foundation is probably one of the highest leverage activities that we can ever do in our lives. And it is a great investment. And although other people aren't going to see it right off the bat, I promise that it's truly, truly important. And that as I go about doing these PC activities of ice baths, reading all these books, doing these podcasts, where like not a whole lot of people are seeing me do it, I know that 10, 20 years down the road, with all this information and callousing of the mind and character that I've developed and health that I've been working on, that I will definitely see those benefits down the road. So there's that for you guys. We really appreciate it. So go and teach this stuff to other people. Get this book, read it, and go teach the material, because of all these positive benefits that will happen in your guys' lives. I promise it's going to work. Give it a shot, guys, and believe me, this is even half as good as what I'm saying. You're going to be referring all your friends. So, let's go with that. Awesome. Enjoy, guys. Love you all.